Welcome to Southbank Centre and our first Digital Unlimited. Please make yourself comfortable and grab any drinks or snacks you need as the event is about to begin. Firstly, a bit of housekeeping from us to make things run smoothly. If you require captions, please click on the closed caption box at the bottom of your screen to view these. Thanks to Claire Hill and Wendy Osmond for providing these for all live events throughout the festival. If you require British Sign Language interpretation, please pin the interpreter to your screen for live conversations. You can do this by hovering over their video and clicking the pin icon. You may need to multi-pin the interpreter and the speakers. Thanks to Performance Interpreting for coordinating this. If you use social media and want to share your festival experiences, please use @Southbank Centre, @WeAreUnlimited, #UnlimitedFest. We really hope you enjoy this event and the whole festival experience. It's always great to learn from our audiences what has worked well and what we could be doing better. Audience surveys will be sent out for feedback after the events, but do feel free to send personal feedback to unlimited@southbankcentre.co.uk. Thanks and enjoy the show.
I don't know if I'm on or not, but that's just the joy of this wonderful, wonderful piece of technology. Hello, everybody. And I was going to say thank you very much for coming, but we haven't come, have we? We've clicked and we're online. So thanks for logging in. I would just like to say that I'm dressed from the waist up, but I've got my pajamas on from the waist down. Nice one. Anyway, I'm Mik Scarlett, and welcome to the second in the Unlimited Festival's Pitch and Mix sessions. Pitch and Mix is an opportunity to get the preview from some of the most exciting projects by disabled artists that are currently in development. Today, we are very pleased to be joined by Ailís Ní Ríain, Christopher Samuel, Stephanie Ann Back, and Naomi Blackmeyer. We're going to hear from Ailís and Christopher's pitches first, and then you, dear listener and viewer, have the opportunity to ask them questions. Then there'll be a short break, and then we come back and we're going to see Stephanie's and Naomi's pitches. And then again, you can ask them some questions. A quick reminder, we are videoing this. It's going to be recorded and it's going to be uploaded onto Unlimited's YouTube channel so that people can watch in different time zones. So just remember that. And of course, you can type in your questions into the Q&A button, which is sort of down below there somewhere, down there. And it will come up on my screen, and then I can ask the question to the contributors, or if for access reasons or for another reason you'd like to ask them in person, then what you do is you click the hand up wave button, and our wonderful tech wizard Ben will ask you to join, and then you can ask your question. But don't forget, you must accept his invitation, otherwise we can't let you in to be one of the in crowd. Anyway, that's enough from me. So let's get on with the first of the two pitches. Roll tape.
I came upon the idea of using various types of pencil-related objects for a number of reasons. I wanted in some way to mimic Koji's work in terms of its visual vibrancy. So it was about doing something with the inside of the piano that looked interesting also. Not just for me as a performer, but to an audience, to see inside the instrument and get a sense of what's in there and what's making what sound. And I think that's the key, really, when we're creating, is to find that space where there's a freedom to interpret something, but also a rigor in how you go about that. But I can't rely on my hearing to judge the quality of that. So what it comes down to is kind of trial and error. I can set up a whole range of situations, record them, document them, photograph them, notate them, match them up to Koji scores so I know where I am and what it is I'm trying to emulate. But it isn't really until that evening when I'm looking at all these visual representations that I'm getting a sense of what that is, what is actually being heard and what is happening there, and what might be potentially interesting. It's a difficult thing to speak about because I can't tell you what it is because you know what it is and I don't. You know what that sounds like. So in order to enable myself, I start thinking of this as percussion, and I start thinking carefully about the materials that I put in the instrument because they can start helping me gain a bit of confidence in what it is that is coming out when I play the sections of the instrument that I can't hear. I'm relying hugely on my sight, and I'm relying on what I kind of know works in the region that I can hear. So it's something to do with transposing your experience. So what you know from somewhere else in music to somewhere where you don't know.
So that was Ailish's film. Amazing. You'll have to forgive me. I'm getting my cues from the chat over here. So it's not quite as professional as it would be if I had it shouted in my ear. But anyway, it's like I'm reading auto cue from the millions of notes stuck all around my camera. Anyway, if you've got questions about that, please log into the Q&A. Give us your questions. I've already got loads. I'm very intrigued. As a musician myself, that was amazing. So that was Ailish's film. Next up, we have Christopher Samuel's pitch.
Hello, my name is Christopher Samuel. I'm an artist who makes work about disability politics. Today I'll be pitching a project called The Welcome In, which was commissioned by Arts Admin, Unlimited and RPMB Blackpool that I completed in 2019. The Welcome In is a sleeping installation at the RPMB in Blackpool, which is a room for people to experience inaccessibility. The idea stems from being made homeless and experiencing structural discrimination. I was forced to stay in a well-known chain hotel, which offered me various rooms that were labeled accessible, but in reality they were not. From this experience, I recreated a room which explored designing a space that needed to be experienced to be understood, a space that able-bodied people would get an idea of inaccessibility. So in turn, I designed a room that was difficult to stay in, which covered all of these different aspects that a disabled person with various impairments would experience going into a space which was labeled accessible, such as inadequate space to move around the room, inadequate bed, furniture which was designed clearly not for someone with a disability, plug sockets and switches in spaces that are wrong, poorly designed bathroom, and elements within the bathroom, such as sink height, accessible place, toilet, and shower. I wanted to open up a conversation about one size fits all culture in design and look at structural discrimination that creates. It was about designing a space that needed to be experienced, to be understood, a slightly theatrical space that targets non-disabled people. The room, as you can see on the screen, had various reactions from people staying in the room itself. But since then, the work was picked up by various universities, galleries, different companies, organizations, charities, and the media, from China to Russia to Brazil, all which could identify with the realities of accessibility and this issue within society. What's happened since that? This work has continued to develop with several opportunities for staging the piece in different locations and contexts. Through this effort, I've developed new approaches for working flexible, fabricating the work and placing it in different contexts. For instance, a charity called Revitalize, which provide short breaks and holidays and respite for disabled people and their carers, approached me. So I'll be recreating this room, which will be seen next year, 2021, in the Postal Museum. That fits into their whole ethos of accessible holidays and so on. Also, a gallery called CAM, an art museum in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'll be working alongside them to recreate the room, to take part in an international convention called LEAD. The convention's about accessibility. So I'll be working with local community students and other designers to fabricate the room. So what I'm looking for is an opportunity to reimagine or recreate the welcoming in different spaces. I'm interested in all kinds of spaces and contexts to create a space for dialogue and to comment on the social model of disability and inclusion and exclusion. I'm able to fabricate the work either as a sleeping installation situated in a living life space, such as a hotel, or as an installation more suited to a gallery space. These can be more. These can be a traditional exhibiting spaces. I'd also like to develop this approach, engaging with different types of spaces such as office, shops, houses, with a similar process. What do these spaces look like, and how can the experience of an able-bodied people within them be altered to reflect a disabled-bodied experience? I think this type of installation, that sleeping installation, has not been done before, particularly talking about structural discrimination in this way. It has been shown to be relevant, particularly during COVID times, whilst everyone is experiencing lockdown and different restrictions. Before this, disabled people were already unable to go away and experience spaces that would offer a break, some sort of respite. So for this work to be seen right now is important in keeping those conversations happening and developing awareness. Thank you.
Well, there you go. Two amazing films and two really amazing pieces of work. Don't forget, if you've got any questions for the two artists, then go down to the Q&A button and send them in, and I will ask them for you. Luckily, I have quite a few of my own too, because I was really impressed. Because we haven't got any yet. So come on, if you ask, you will be the first people. Definitely get asked. Here we go, straight away. Nice one. So this is from Fiona Slater, who has got a question for Ailís. How did your collaboration with Koji begin?
Thank you for the question. I became aware of his work when I attended the Unlimited Festival in the Southbank Centre in 2016. There was an exhibition of work by 3 outsider artists from Japan, and that's where I saw his work first, and it spoke to me immediately. He refers to his visual art as musical scores, and as a musician who's worked with graphic scores in the past, as well as traditionally notated scores, I thought they were ripe for interpretation and absolutely fascinating. I'd never seen anything like them.
Smashing, thank you. We've got a question from anonymous attendee, the well-known anonymous attendee. I do like your work. Question to Chris. Have you got any plans to tour your work north of the border? Because they'd love to be able to send some friends to see it.
Hello. I would love the opportunity to possibly tour the work. But again, I think this platform, hopefully someone watching could support me in kind of realizing that. I think because of the work itself, it's not something you can just put together quick and take down. There's a lot of different elements which go into the construction of it. So yeah, but yes.
Can I ask, Chris, have you thought of contacting design colleges and design universities? Because I do a lot of lecturing on inclusive design, and to be honest, being able to install something like your piece in one of the design spaces and then allow the students to experience it would make lecturers' jobs much easier.
No, thank you for that. No, I did speak. Well, I was approached by Loughborough University, and I kind of spoke with their students at one of their lectures via Zoom um, about being aware of certain things while they're going through the process of designing spaces. But no, we'll look into that.
Well, I'll stay in touch because I've got really good friends at some of the colleges, and so I'd like to introduce you to them. So we'll see.
Brilliant.
You know, you never know. Friends in high places and all that kind of thing. It's always worth having. Ailís, I've got to ask you, as a fellow musician, what is all this stuff about characters in the piano? I like that because obviously I have a collection of synthesizers, as you can see, and they all have their own character, and it's almost like you're talking to a person. So is that who are these characters? I'm really intrigued.
Well, they're a rogue's gallery of characters, really, that I've accumulated over the years. They, some of the potential for this piece is around building the narrative of who they are, why they're there, and what they do. They work on a number of levels. I mean, at a very basic level, it's quite lonely being a solo musician, working with a beautiful grand piano, if you're lucky enough to, and looking at the abyss from the seat. So they fulfill a number of functions. They keep me cheerful, but also they give me they sort of trigger thinking around inspiration, especially when I'm looking at Koji scores, because they're quite wild. I mean, I need to go into another space to free myself up mentally, and having these little characters in there help me with that. But having said that, I'm also interested in what they look like inside the piano, because for me, because of my hearing loss, I am glued to the inside of that instrument when I'm playing it, and they are all attached to different mechanisms inside the piano as well, and also alter the sound. So and finally, I'd say I'm interested in what the audience and the viewer gets to see in the instrument, because we don't normally see inside a beautiful grand piano. And I want it to be a beautiful thing. I want it to be something that's charming, that's funny, that inspires people, and that is adding something a bit different and a bit interesting to the world of contemporary music and piano repertoire.
Well, it's great. And if you ever need to borrow any synthesizers, I have quite a few. There's also quite a few in a storage locker somewhere else. So there's quite a few that are, and they don't all work the way they should do. So that you might quite enjoy seeing what comes out of them, because they're not all functioning. I've got a question for Christopher, again from another anonymous attendee, saying, have you had any response from hotel chains? Have they sort of seen your work and said, and asked maybe to work with you and improve their accessible, he says in quotes, rooms?
Ironically, no. But I will say I got contacted by a lady who owns a small chain of hotels, not hotels, bungalows that you can stay in, which are accessible. And we've started to collate a list of every hotel in England which don't have the right facilities, which are labeled accessible, but in turn they're not. So, for instance, did I have a profiling bed? No. Do they have a self-washing toilet, a closet mat? No, these little things, ceiling hoist. Do they have a hoist so you can get in and out? No. So I'm in the process of collating a list, which is very extensive at the moment. You know.
Yeah, that's a job in itself, trying to find out all the hotels that say they're accessible and then what they don't have. And it's funny as well, because as a wheelchair user, obviously, the accessible rooms for you, but I'm a manual wheelchair user that sits in my chair just under 5 foot because I'm tall and my chair is big. So almost everything is wrong for me as well. And I'd love to know who it is that they design for, because it's not any disabled person I know. So Ailís, how are you planning to take this live? What's the live experience? Say you come to see it, how are you planning to take that, and what would you want from our wonderful viewers to help you do that?
Well, my interest really is because of the restrictions around the instrument, getting hold of an instrument like that, a venue that's interested in that kind of work. There are challenges in securing the instrument and venues. So I'm actually more interested in creating a film of the work and developing it as a digital online work, but also a digital film in itself that could be used and projected. So there are a number of options, and I'm interested really in hearing from people that see some potential in the idea. So deliberately what I've pitched today is quite open-ended, really. I think it's, I love it and I love working on it and I want to share it. So I think it could have an online specifically created for online digital profile, but also, as I say, perhaps installation or projection as film. Of course, a live performance is possible, but I think the difficulties there, in addition to actually securing instrument, as I've mentioned earlier, is really about getting the audience, allowing them the opportunity to be inside the piano with me. That's what I'm most interested in. And also to reinterpret Koji's work in a more flexible dimension. So the audience can see what it is I'm interpreting, but also perhaps to work with an animator to animate his drawings. So you're actually seeing a whole scope of relationships at play. And I think it's more suited to a digital output in that sense, because simply you can get better angles on the inside of the instrument and communicate more to the audience. They can actually see directly what is being triggered and what sounds that emits.
That's brilliant. That sounds great. Yes, I must. I've got a keyboard Minx. In fact, I've got the one that used to be at the BBC because it was so badly battered. But it's quite nice whenever I see it being played by David Bowie's band or Roxy Music. And I can't imagine trying to get that out of my house, so let alone a grand. I suppose I'm not too sure when I'm meant to be wrapping up. Because of course we've got 2 more films and a question and breaks to have, but I've got 5 minutes. Thank you, Ben. So I'm going to ask Chris. Let's have a look at my questions. Have you thought about taking it to councils and to show like planning departments and people like that your room, so that they get an understanding? Because I know from my own experience of planning departments, they think they know what accessible design is, but they don't.
Well, I have thought about that, but I haven't started the process yet. But yeah, it'll be interesting because to begin with, I don't have a harmonious relationship with the councils as it is, so I think it'll be definitely.
I suppose, have you thought of like creating, say, like a what they call, like a camper van that you could put that in and then just drive it around the country and park it outside buildings and say, come and have a look, come and have a stay?
Yeah, I need quite a big camper van for that. I think
Get yourself a Winnebago. Get sponsored by one of by Volkswagen or something, and get them to put it in. I reckon it would really work.
Okay.
You get yourself on Gorgeous George's Amazing Spaces as well.
That would be
Yeah,
amazing.
that sounds perfectly. And I suppose we've got 5 minutes, so we better, break at 10:40. What is it? I've got 2 minutes. So one question I'm going to ask to both of you, I think I'll stay with Christopher first and then go back to Ailís, is this work, both of your work references disability in some way. Does all of your work do that?
Yes.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah, I think yeah, my practice is based on disability politics, so all good stuff.
Cool. And Ailís?
No, not all my work references disability. I started to create work that does reference disability in 2007. And I think I've worked on maybe 6 to 7, 8 different projects around this subject area. But I work broadly in music and music theatre.
It's quite funny, isn't it? Because I'm very much the same. I don't really reference it, but actually it has to come in because it's part of who you are and it's part of what shapes every moment of your life. So I completely understand that sort of.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, working on any project, it's a conversation I need to have with commissioners and collaborators straight up, because my disability affects how we work together, how we communicate. So it's always present in the room, but only some of the work that I do clearly references it in terms of wanting to put it out there and talk about it, or at least get the conversation going. A lot of people, I think that there's a lot of mystery around how do deaf musicians actually work? How does it work? What is it they're hearing? And I think people are very reluctant to ask the question, how do you manage to do what you do with the disability? And I'm more than happy to talk about it, because the more of us that feed into this conversation, the less barriers we have around getting work programmed and collaborating with each other in a productive way. That sort of drives the point home as well.
It is a myth that obviously hearing impaired people can't make music. Having said that, I've got a friend who plays in a band called Gnostic Gorilla, who has just lost his hearing and is absolutely sure he won't be able to continue making music. And I'm going to point him to your work to indicate that it is possible. And that might be someone you might want to form a working relationship in the future. Anyway, with that, it's time for our break, folks. So we're back at 10:55. Thank you very much, Ailís. Thank you very much, Christopher. Superb. I can't wait to see these come to fruition. And I'm probably going to be pushing both your work quite vigorously because I love it. So go away, make a cup of tea, have a pee and all that kind of stuff. Back at 10:55 for more brilliant stuff from Stephanie and Naomi Blackmeyer. All right, bye, see you in a bit.
Minding my own business, walking down the street, these disposable kids, they start bothering me. You see them hanging around, circle around every town. They get a strange kick from putting me down. Leave me alone. You can't stand where I come from. Leave me alone. Go home. Everything I do is wrong. Just trying to find my way home. So much, I try to keep my head down, but the plague of harassment seems to follow me around. I've got to seek shelter in places I can hide, but they're still waiting for me everywhere inside. Just leave me alone. You can't stand where I come from. Leave me alone. I go home. Everything I do is wrong. Just trying to find my way home. Leave me alone. Go home. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. enough. I ain't taking nothing else. No, they're trying to avoid me, trying to think of their health. When I corner of my eye, I see I'm trying to break others. Like the city's protector, I'll let them spread suffering. Leave us alone. You can't stand where we come from. Leave us alone. Go home. Everything we do is wrong. Just trying to find our way home. You can't stand where we come from. Leave us all alone. Everything we do is wrong. Just trying to find our way home. Leave us alone. Go home. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Whoa.
Can't wait to see my friends, lots of time I need to spend. I'm gonna go shopping, do lots of power walking. I'm gonna feel real happy, and life is gonna be smiling. I'm gonna wear my favourite top with my pink and red flip-flops. What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? Can't wait to see my friends, lots of time I need to spend. I'm gonna go shopping, do lots of power walking. I'm gonna feel real happy, and life is gonna be smiling. I'm gonna do some painting, bubbling, bright. What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? What you gonna do? Who you gonna see? How you gonna feel? Where you gonna go? When will I see my friends? When's it gonna end? When will I see my friends? When's it gonna end? When will I see my friends? When's it gonna end? When will I see my friends? When's it gonna end?
It's a Tuesday morning, and I'm getting up. Gonna take a shower, put some coffee in my cup. I got to stay alert, I got to tidy my room. So mundane, it's the same, but at least I get to see my friends on Zoom. Tuesday,
it's a day, it's a week, it's a month in the year.
Tuesday. It's the way that we speak being seen on the screen. Can you feel me over here? Tuesday, it's a day in the week. It's a week in the month. It's a month in the year. Tuesday, it's the way that we speak being seen on the screen. And I feel it right here.
Yeah. It's Tuesday evening, and I'm going to eat. The last one taken for the side on the side, or a really good treat. I watch some TV, but it's got talent. I brush my teeth, listen to the radio, and I'm going to bed. Fall asleep, fall asleep, fall asleep.
Tuesday,
It's a day in the week, in a month, it's been a month in a year.
Tuesday,
It's the way that we speak being on the screen. Can you feel me over here?
Tuesday,
It's a day in the week, in a month, it's been a month in a year.
Tuesday,
It's the way that we speak being on the screen. And I can feel you right here.
Hello, we're back. I hope you've all gone and got yourself a cup of tea. I have. So welcome to the second part of today's Unlimited Festivals pitch and mix session. Earlier we heard from Alice and Christopher. Next up we've got Stephanie and Back and Naomi Blackmeyer, who are going to show us videos of work they've got in development and sort of tell you stuff that they'd like you to help them with if possible. And don't forget, we want your questions. So while you're watching, or in between while I'm waffling like I am now, stick your questions into the Q&A button down below and they'll come up on my screen and I can ask the artists your questions. Or if you need to ask through BSL or because you'd like to ask them in person, click the wave button and then Ben will let you in and you can ask them yourself. Anyway, that's enough from me again. It's time for the second two of our pitches. Roll VT, he says, sounding very old.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Back, and I'm here to talk about my show, FOW, spelt F-O-W. Previously, the show carried a different name, having been developed under the title I Said I Love You. However, we recently took the decision to change its name, having explored its relevance to the heart of the piece and realising FOW was more authentically right to its meaning. So what does FOW actually mean? Well, imagine myself, a deaf BSL user, meeting someone with no knowledge of BSL. They would foul, meaning they don't understand and we can't communicate. Although the title has changed, I want you to know that the show remains as it was. FOW explores themes including language, communication, relationships, and identity. It has specific focus, however, on Welsh culture and Welsh language, in comparison to deaf culture and British Sign Language. The show is a collaboration between myself and my own company, Deaf and Fabulous, and Taking Flight Theatre. It's directed by Ailís Davidson and written by Alan Saunders. FOW follows the story of three characters, the protagonist being Lisa, a deaf British Sign Language user who is headstrong, independent, and feisty. We follow her as she meets Sean. He's a proud Welshman and speaker of the language who's recently been through a devastating heartbreak. Our third character is Josh, Lisa's brother and self-appointed protector. He himself is struggling with his own cultural and language identity, and the audience follows all three of these as their stories, cultures, and language begin to intertwine and interfere. The subtext of these stories, therefore, becomes the language itself, the inevitable culture clash and the relationships that evolve as they find their way. We become enticed by Lisa's journey. She's fiercely independent and adamant that she relies on no one but herself. She feels content in her private world, that is until she meets Sean, and she likes him. She doesn't expect to connect with him as she does. She's unnerved and shaken by her own vulnerability, resulting in her guard coming up and a quick emotional retreat. We follow Lisa as she struggles to cope with these new emotions while trying to connect and communicate with Sean. So, is this a sad story? Not at all. It's rife with passion, humour, and resilience. Simply giving up is not an option she'll entertain. It's a truly relatable, authentic human story and offers the opportunity for audiences to connect with this kind of narrative through our characters. We give you a front row seat to what happens when Welsh language meets BSL. Where does this happen? How does it work and how can these characters possibly communicate? At the moment in Wales, deaf people continue to face barriers to Welsh language. So how will our characters adapt? What happens? You'll have to wait and see. Now more than ever, audiences need the joy and humour within this show. Things have been so challenging for us all through the 2020 pandemic. This is an opportunity to relax, enjoy, and escape into the story. You can expect laughter, tears, empathy, and even a new perspective as you put yourself in the character's shoes. Our target audience are those aged 18 to 30. However, the show is appropriate for those 14 years and over. It's an incredibly relatable story. Anyone who's experienced feeling different, misunderstood, or struggled with identity or communication will connect with this show. Have a look at some of our audience feedback so far. The show has been adapted for Zoom webinars and is an online digital production. It has a runtime of 1 hour, which includes live performance and pre-recorded elements. The 3 languages used in this piece are Welsh, British Sign Language, and English. There's even audience participation involved, achieved by using the polls function to influence the story. Access is provided via translation technology, however, playing with this access is also a key part of the show. At some point, all audience members will foul what is being said, while others will understand. Many audience members find this challenge exciting as they have to work hard in order to process and figure out what they are experiencing and what is happening. By mirroring the character's journey in this way, it means that the audience and the characters are all in the same boat. This offers the opportunity to consider communication from the perspective of another, while connecting to each other even more. Every show will be followed by a question and answer session with the company. The full production of Fowl will be available for programming in the spring and summer of 2021. While we are based in Wales, the digital nature of the show means it can be booked regionally and audiences can watch from anywhere. Thank you to Arts Council Wales and Unlimited for their funding support thus far. I look forward to receiving your inquiries and thank you for your time. Please contact me via the email at the bottom of the screen. Bye.
Superb. That does sound very exciting, especially because I'm just about starting to learn British Sign Language myself, so I won't even attempt to try at the moment. Next up, we have a film from Naomi Blackmeyer. So again, think of your questions about that film. Think about the questions about the film that's coming on. Put them in the Q&A button, and that way I can ask them for you. So let's start. Film number 2 from Naomi Blackmeyer.
I'm Naomi Blackmeyer. I'm a live artist, performance artist. My work is really predominantly durational live art practice. I'm particularly interested in the body and the body in relation to other bodies and space and society in general. So I'm really interested in juxtaposing my body and sometimes the body of others against the world that we all live in, and to create sort of absurd, unexpected scenarios. And I think that's really at the heart of all my work. In the past, I've shown my work in so many wide and varied places and for some great organizations. So I've done a fair amount of work with Unlimited, of course, over the years. I've got very long-standing relationships with Live Arts Development Agency and Arts Admin in the UK. Long-established relationship, I'd say by now, was In Between Time Festival. And internationally, I showed Cherophobia at the Sydney Opera House and at How To in Berlin. Last year, I was invited to show one of my other pieces, Undress Redress, at May Festival in Montreal. That was also previously shown in New York. It's the work that we're making this little film about. It's called Never Happier. It's a piece that's been traveling with me for a number of years. And it feels that it's ripe and ready to get out there and get seen a bit more. It first came about in 2014, I think, while I was working on Cherophobia for my Unlimited commission. And I was invited to take part of in a sharing event. And there was a bit of a dilemma there because Cherophobia, it's a bit of an all or nothing piece. That's the piece where I float from 20,000 balloons. And there's no way of sort of doing that in an R&D stage. And so I was thinking about how there could be another piece that conveys maybe a similar aesthetic of this push and pull between this very cheerful image of balloons and the restraint and the slight oddity of it all. And that's kind of how Never Happier came about. It's essentially me sitting on the floor in this extremely large black circular ball gown. And I'm holding a large bunch of balloons. People are invited to take balloons out of my hand and attach them to the hem of my skirt. And slowly, as more and more people take balloons out of my hands and attach them to my skirt, the skirt rises up and starts to sort of unveil the lower half of my body and cover my face until all the balloons are on top and the dress then closes in over the top of my head. I really look forward to going back to this because in 2014 it felt a little bit it didn't have the time it deserved. So over this strange year of 2020, I have been reworking the piece and redeveloping the piece. And also I'm currently working on making it ready for 2021 to make it into a piece that works in a socially distanced way so that we can hopefully go back to live performances again at some point. And I think Never Happier is a great piece to come back with. So in the planning now, what I've worked on this year is make a much more polished version of the piece. And as I said, a version that will also work in a socially distanced way. So the plan is to make a piece that has an even bigger skirt, which will both help with the social distancing and I hope make it a bigger statement piece, a grander piece, maybe make the contrast and opposite between my relatively small body and the size of the dress and the bunch of balloons a little bit more intense. I've done a lot of research over the last 5 or 6 years on balloons and their environmental merits. And I have found a balloon manufacturer that makes 100% biodegradable latex balloons. Helium is a limited resource, and this is extremely important in medical settings. So the stuff I use it's strictly speaking called balloon gas, which is recycled helium that has already had a life before it became balloon gas and would not have any medical uses anymore. So I just always feel that's really important to state. I really like my work being shown in really different contexts. And the context changes the work. I see all my work as site-specific and it changes every time to fit its context. Because I think in a way its context is part of the work. I could easily imagine Never Happier in a gallery space, say at an exhibition opening. I could see it in completely unconventional spaces. I mean, say, churches, community spaces, you name it. I have considered doing it virtually too. I guess what it would need physically is a space because it is a piece that takes up a considerable amount of space. What feels really important to me about the piece that is Never Happier, the way I conceptualize it, is the audience interaction and that taking of responsibility that I hand over to the audience of lifting my skirt that I hand over to them. I'm really interested in the power dynamics that this creates and playing with those power dynamics that different bodies, different spaces create with each other. And that's really present in most of my practice. I feel that I make work to find the language to say things that can't be said in any other way. It's a way of expressing myself and exploring the world as I experience it, but also an opportunity for audience members to, through my work, to explore their world through a different language.
Amazing, amazing. I think I'm back. I'm not sure. Yay, the joys of technology. Anyway, So there you go. There was a film from Stephanie Ann Back and from Naomi Blackmeyer. Superb and very different. One of the amazing things about the whole disability arts world is just how varied and challenging the pieces are, and yet how brilliant. I've been around on the disability art scene for longer than I care to admit, early 80s, and it's amazing to see how much it's come on. So let's get on with the questions. We've got a question from, hang on a minute, I've got to lift a bit of paper. Oh, it's anonymous attendee again. You do get around. A question for Stephanie. What was the unique challenges around having to balance the audience understanding of all three of the languages that you used?
So that was a really big challenge, actually. I've always tried to create, so I've been trying for the last 4 years to create the show. There's been lots of ways that we've tried to show, so basically get feedback from the audience to see how they feel and how they respond to the performance. So with the style of show that we create, a lot of people feel a little bit taken aback, they can't understand, but then when they do understand, they feel engaged. So it's that disconnect and reconnect all the way through the performance. So they really understand what it's like to have that misunderstanding. So obviously we had BSL, Welsh and English, and it was really interesting to have feedback from those various audience members to see how they felt, what they felt. Was it stressful through the performance, things like that? So yeah, a big challenge, certainly.
Smashing. And again, anonymous attendee, a question kind of for both of you, but I think I'll ask Naomi first. What are the challenges about trying to reimagine your work as a piece for online during this interesting few last year we just had?
Yeah, it has been interesting. I think I've been quite reluctant to reimagine existing pieces for online, and have spent this last year coming up with new pieces that are already sort of set in an online world. And rather than putting them online, I'm in the process now of reimagining some existing pieces like Never Happier, and there's a new piece in the pipeline, in a way that would work in a as safe as possible, socially distanced way, sort of ready to go back into live performances, or rather to dip a toe into live performances. While I really do feel that reluctance of going online, I mean, I did say in the video, I am interested in exploring, say, how Never Happier could work in a purely online way. But for me, this interaction with the audiences, whether it is direct and physical, or the existence, even just the existence in the same space, is so crucial to my work that I'm finding it really difficult. I'm really grappling with that.
Do you think that it's going to change the way you work in the future? That this period, do you think that you might start exploring that kind of virtual pieces as another element of your practice?
Absolutely. I think it has started to form a different strand of my work, but it feels like it is very much a different strand. It doesn't feel like it's my existing work reimagined. I think it's a similar aesthetic and similar ideas behind it, but it is very much a separate thing. And I really hope that there will be two strands, and that there will be a way of going back to being in the same physical space as audience members sometimes in the not too far distant future, even if this might mean smaller groups, greater distance, however we might make it work. But I'm craving that. And
although it has opened up the world to so many more people from our community that were stuck inside.
Absolutely. So I mean, it's been incredible to be able to connect with people all over the world last year, and to realize how possible that is, when, you know, before we were always told, oh, well, no, we can't do things online. That would be far too complicated. That has been incredible.
I must admit, in my work in business, it's been quite phenomenal. I went from in February last year having an argument about how we couldn't allow people to homework, to in March rolling out homeworking for about 48,000 people. So it's definitely changed the way the whole world works, that's for sure. And yeah. Stephanie, you obviously with a live drama piece, it's been quite a lot of work within all walks of drama to get that so it can go online. But what specific challenges have you faced when you're trying to get British Sign Language and the Welsh language into the online world?
Well, at the start, I certainly felt a little bit all at sea. I was really worried. I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of other performances that had been adapted to understand how to create a successful production, but also look at things that I liked and things that I didn't like. So Zoom was a really interesting platform to use, and obviously using the CCs in that as well. So we could use Welsh in the CCs, we could use English, whatever language was used at the time could be put into that format. Also, the translation, the translation issues can become part of the audio description as well. So we fitted that into the production. So for me, I think it's really, really interesting how anyone, anywhere around the world has access to the performance that we're creating now in any language, any culture, anywhere in the world. You can have that connection. It's really exciting.
Funnily enough, we've got a question from Sarah Wang on this very issue. She's from an arts organisation in Canada, and says, you know, would it be possible to bring your work to our audiences, say via Zoom, and how would you sort of overcome the logistical issues around sort of sight and sound and stuff like that? So you kind of already answered that, but so Sarah, yes, it's definitely available for you. Are you looking to take it international?
Oh, absolutely. I think certainly. Now, with the online capabilities, it means there's so many more opportunities out there.
It's an experience as well, though, isn't it, for all around the world, this idea of people coming together and they're having different languages and different cultures and how they clash. And it's just interesting that you've obviously from your own experience brought in British Sign Language. What are the issues around British Sign Language and Welsh? I never actually thought of that one, but that must be something that was really interesting to explore.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was really, really interesting. There were so many barriers, so it was difficult for a deaf person to learn Welsh, of course. And I've been trying to find other deaf people out there who've learned Welsh, learned sign language. I think I found one person in the end. So my memory's a bit foggy. Can you ask me again? What was the question?
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, you and me both. It's all this lockdown. We've been so far away from people that suddenly when you're talking to people, it's like, what did I say? Well, it was about this idea of the language being such a barrier, and whether it's British Sign Language or whether it's just people speaking different languages orally. Are you trying to capture that using your own experience to capture that broader experience? And is that one of the elements that you bring to the piece? If that makes any sense.
Yes, thank you. Thanks again. So I was really, really interested in the whole language, the whole culture aspect. Obviously, I live in Wales myself, so I started to look at Welsh history, Welsh culture, the Welsh language. I realised there were so many things that were coming up that were the same as deaf history. So I was finding correlations. Like we had the Milan conference in the 1880s. So all sign language all over the world was banned from that point. That had a massive impact on the deaf community. Also, so I started looking at the Welsh history in relation to that, and I realised that historically, if you go back, the Welsh language was denied through school. So speaking Welsh, if children were caught speaking Welsh in school, they had to wear a hat and a sign saying we do not use Welsh. And once the day was finished, they got punished, they got caned because they were speaking Welsh at school. So there's so many similarities of language discrimination, of oppression in both communities. So both cultures have got that history and are stronger for it. And it's the kind of pride aspect of that. I think that's beautiful.
Just to say, I think you should contact Michael Sheen, because this sounds right up his street. And I'm sure this is something that he'd support wholeheartedly. So get in touch with him. Now, Naomi, I'm interested in the ecological element of your practice. Has that become more and more important as you've proceeded these works?
Definitely. I think the more I've given thought to the materials, because the way I work and think is I start off with this image, and then I usually sort of think, how can this image be created? And then it comes in, well, we need balloons and we need helium, obviously, for instance, to make this happen. And then come in the questions, well, but this is incredibly unenvironmental, isn't it? And that comes in with a lot of my work. And then it's almost like taking a step back and going, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the image that I want to create. How can we make this as sustainable as possible? I mean, I think it would be ridiculous to say that kind of any art piece doesn't create any waste or any environmental footprint. I mean, we used to fly all over the world, if I remember correctly. But I sort of that already with Cherophobia, sort of in the run up to the 2016 performance. But we sort of kept it relatively low profile because we felt, well, if somebody wants to know about the environmental statement, people know about it. And then it toured to Sydney. And no offense to any Australians, but their cultural landscape is relatively limited. So the flying person from Europe coming to the Sydney Opera House gave me sort of my 15 minutes of fame of being like on the radio and the national news. And so it got a really huge profile, and it attracted all these people who were furiously angry with the environmental impact of the piece. Even though we had taken all these mitigating steps, and they sent death threats and said they would bomb the opera house while we're doing the performance. And if I'm going to kill 20,000 animals, then they're going to come and kill me. And we needed extra security, and it was an odd one. So since then, I think I've, for those reasons, but also because it feels more and more important, put the environmental statements and thought processes very much more to the front rather than a sort of afterthought. Yes. Somebody wants to know.
Yeah. You don't think you're going to get death threats for being an artist, do you?
No, I'd never considered that either. No, I mean, it was an interesting experience.
I must admit, I got a death threat once. I was reviewing the newspapers on Sky, and I said, why don't we all just try and get on? Oh, what apparently I got a death threat. They sent me it via Facebook. So they actually sent it from their own account. But anyway, again, we've got a question about power dynamics. How does that work? What is that one of the core pieces, sort of core elements that shape your practice, Noemi?
Absolutely. I think power dynamics are what I'd call the red thread through my work. The power dynamics between different groups of people, between individuals, the power dynamics between genders, between disabled and non-disabled people, age. I think power dynamic is sort of the core of everything that I do, and that I'm really interested in challenging and inviting the audience in experiencing that challenge as they come into my performances, and to also make them quite uncomfortable, to confront them with a challenge to power dynamics.
Yeah, I think that's a very good description. Discomfort and beauty. That really describes your work.
I like making it. I like this push and pull, you know, drawing people in and at the same time making them uncomfortable and making them have to live with this discomfort of wanting to look, but also wanting to look away.
So both of you, I think this is probably going to be our last question. What are your hopes and plans for the rest of this year, fingers crossed, and next year? And how can anyone help you achieve them? Who wants to go first? Naomi, you go first, and then I'll go over to Stephanie.
Okay. So hopes and plans. I mean, what feels odd about this year is that I have so many hopes and plans, but none of it feels concrete because we just don't really quite know. I mean, I'm very excited at the moment, and I can't openly speak about it yet, but there's a new piece that I've been wanting to make for a while that's in the process of being commissioned by a German festival that we have adapted to be socially distant. So I'm very excited about making that happen. It was my plan for 2020 to create some new work rather than only tour old work. I mean, I don't want to make this sound like touring old work is a bad thing, but I was really excited about getting something new out after touring a lot in 2019. So I guess my hopes and dreams are, I guess, twofold: to be able to perform live again. And, you know, all you guys out there can help me by inviting me to perform in your venues in a COVID conscious, considered way once possible. And the other thing is to continue developing my online and video-based practice, which COVID has sort of thrown me into something that I was always quite uncomfortable with. And now I'm kind of almost excited about it. And again, I think you can help me out by just, if you're interested in my work, get in touch.
Brilliant. So there you go. Get in touch with Naomi if you want to know more. And Stephanie.
Power dynamics of being uncomfortable.
That's it. The power dynamics of being uncomfortable, online or in person. She can do both. So Stephanie, what about you? What are your hopes for the next, say, year and a half?
I'm really, really excited to start working on my shows. So we've started rehearsal. We will start rehearsals in February. That will be commencing. It's really, really exciting. I aim to work with audiences, a variety of audiences. I want to really engage with the deaf audience, Welsh speaking audiences, and also, well, anyone, any audience. I want to, you know, any language speaker. It doesn't matter what language, what culture, I want them to come and have a relationship with the production, and that's what's exciting. I think at the moment, a lot of people are feeling isolated and unsure, and I think we need to connect. We need to have that connection with people. I think that's really important. And
what can people do to help you get that project going? What are you asking for? Let's get some benefit out of this, shall we? So come on, folks. This is what can they do to help you get this off and out there?
I think with regard to social media, so if you could help me out by sharing and following and getting things out there, I think that's the most important thing, to have exposure to interesting art, and then they can book to watch the show, and anything's possible, and anyone can contact us and connect, and I'm happy to have any conversation with anyone about the work. It's really exciting.
Someone's just said, Stephanie, that you actually caught COVID. I hope you're feeling much better now, but I want to know, has it impacted on your practice? Do you think it will shape the way you work in future?
Oh, definitely. I caught COVID in October last year, and I have long COVID now. So I still have issues now where I can't walk very well. I can't cope with steps. And it's difficult because I live on the third floor flat. So I live on the third floor. That's a lot of stairs. So sometimes I can't get out much. It becomes very difficult. You end up feeling quite tired. So my directors tried to create rehearsal program in order to create it suitable for everybody. So focusing on break time, focusing on having rehearsals through the week, and then having certain times throughout the week to have a break, then get back to work again. So structuring it differently, certainly. Well, so it depends on how we're feeling on the day, how we're coping, and what's going on with us.
Well, I hope you get back to full health soon. I know from my own experience, I've had a few experiences where I've had to recover from long things, and it is quite striking how much it knocks out of you, but you do get back to being your original bouncy self, hopefully in the end. Anyway, I think that's about it for us. I'd like to say thank you to Ailís Ní Ríain, Christopher Samuel, Stephanie Ann Back, and Naomi Blackmeyer, to Stephanie and Rob, our BSL Terps, to Wendy and Claire for the closed captions, to Ben for making all the magic work, for Harry for organising all of this. I'm Mik Scarlett. I've been your host for today. I'd like to thank the Southbank Centre for putting on this wonderful event, and Unlimited for being the wonderful thing that they are. And with that, I would like to say goodbye, folks. Hope you enjoy the rest of the planned seasons, and thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mik, and everybody.
start all over again. We start all over again. We start all